Good morning. Got a big week this week. Got primaries for the elections and positions that are going to be coming up in November to be voted on. But big primary week for lots of people, and so I just want to take a few minutes. It's going to be a short video, but just a few minutes to talk about the relationship between not the church and politics, but discipleship and politics. How we train each other, how we teach each other, how we encourage each other through the process of discipleship as it is laid down in the Bible through not just Jesus Christ, but even in the Old Testament, and how the people of God would train others within the nation of Israel, even talk to others outside of the nation of Israel about the goodness of God, the morality of God, what we are to do in our worship of God and our relationship with God. And so this is a very biblical principle in terms of discipleship throughout the entire Bible. But in terms of how we interact and engage with politics, it's very important, because we tend to take one of two extreme positions. Either we engage too much with politics, and we actually fall on the side of the people who will believe you cannot be a follower of Jesus Christ unless you are of one political persuasion or one political party. That's an extreme. That's wrong. Also, the other side of it, the other extreme, would be we don't engage at all with politics, specifically with things that are now political issues, because we don't want to appear as if we are taking one side or the other and saying, if you are not of one political ideology or persuasion, then you can't possibly be a follower of Jesus Christ. Both of those extremes are wrong. And so the correct practice of dealing with discipleship and politics is really looking at the issues within politics. There are lots of people who do this well. There are lots of people who do this poorly. One of the ways in which we as individuals can make sure that we are engaging correctly with politics is if we have a political issue, whether it be the contested one at the moment would be abortion and the Supreme Court decision that may be coming down, is anticipated to be coming down in June, that is going to overturn Roe versus Wade and send abortion decisions and abortion rights back to the states rather than keeping it at the federal level. Whether it be that abortion, whether it be issues of same-sex marriage or sexuality in general, whether it even be financial issues and economic issues of how best to combat inflation, how best to make sure that private citizens and individuals have enough economic money and capacity to take care of themselves and their families. All of these have turned into, you talk about them and people automatically think that they are political issues, when in reality, everything that we talk about, everything that we engage with in life is going to be a biblical issue, because everything that we do in life should be done with the purpose of glorifying God, of honoring Him with our behavior and our actions and our decisions, honoring Him with the way in which we engage with each other and our relationship with each other, showing love and mercy and compassion instead of hate and anger and animosity towards each other. And so all of these issues that we contest, that we see argued about on TV and news programs and podcasts and magazine articles and everything else, we need to make sure to approach them with a biblical worldview, with the idea that it is not the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or the Libertarian Party or independents or whatever it may be that have the right answers, but what does the Bible say? What does the Holy Scripture of God say about these issues? Because that is where we're going to find the truth. That is where we're going to find our correct answer about everything. And so as we engage with politics in our discipleship, engage the topics. Make sure that we are talking about the biblical view that life at conception, the life inside the womb is life, is knit together by God, has a purpose before God. It needs to be protected. Make sure that we are talking about the fact that the relationships, and especially sexuality, not just the Bible's condemnation or teaching against things like homosexuality, but also the Bible's condemnation of heterosexual sin, of all sexuality outside of the covenant of marriage. That there is a special relationship, actually an institution that God has given us, not just to be in relationship with each other, not just for the purpose of family and procreation, but even to show us the relationship between God and the church. Ephesians, Paul mentions this in Ephesians. And so all of these things that we are forming opinions on need to be formed with a biblical worldview. How does the Bible address every one of these issues? And then we approach the topic in the process of discipleship with all its complexities, with all the individuality and the backgrounds that the people that we are discipling are going to be coming from, and just a practical way that I try and do this within my own preaching and teaching and discipleship. I hope that you have been able to pick up on this, because I do make a specific point to do it each and every time, is whenever there is the text, again, when we practice expositional preaching, which I have a very strict view of expositional preaching. It is book, chapter, verse. It is looking through the entire text. It's not just me opinionating a idea that I have and trying to pick out a text to fit with that. No, we're going to go book, chapter, verse. We're going to see what the text says, and then we're going to address those issues. Every time that the text brings up an issue that is also addressed within politics, I try and make sure that I do not push, or I do not endorse, you could say, to use a political term, one side or the other, but I specifically bring out how all sides, Republican, Democrat, independent, libertarian, whatever you're talking about, all sides have their flaws, because American government, specifically in our context, but all government is not a theodicy. It's not a governmental system where they are getting their direction and they are getting their decision making in terms of laws and procedures from the Bible. It's outside of the holy text of Scripture, and therefore all of it's going to be imperfect. And so we want to make sure that we do not push one side or the other within a Christian discipleship context. Years ago, there was a social gospel push, and the idea that in order to please God, we had to almost a works-based, acts-based type of salvation. We had to engage in these particular social programs for the poor and for those who are in need, which is something that we should do, but it's not tied to our salvation. That was more of a democratic push in terms of Christians who were Democrats. More recently, you have seen a push towards a Christian nationalism, and this is more on the Republican side, where the ideas of the Republican Party are tied to the ideas of the Bible, and that is also entirely false. There is no one political party, there is no one political ideology in the world today that focuses on what the Holy Scripture of God says. And that's why when we're forming our opinions, and it's not bad to be a member of a political party, it's not bad to have loyalty to a political party, but when we're forming our opinions, they have to be from a biblical worldview. They cannot be from a Democratic worldview. They cannot be from a Republican worldview. They cannot be from a Libertarian worldview. They have to be from a biblical worldview, and then that way, as we are within these political parties, whether they be Democrat, whether they be Republican, we can help, and even within those contexts, we can help disciple our fellow Democrats, our fellow Republicans, toward a more biblical worldview, and with the hopes of even moving those platforms toward a more biblical worldview. But the understanding in our discipleship, we have to be very, very careful not to take what we see as the moral, the good, the righteous aspects of these political ideologies and bring them into our theology. That's not what we do. Bring them into our worldview. Instead, we start and we keep a biblical worldview, and we bring that worldview into our political ideologies, into our Democratic Party, into our Republican Party, Libertarian Party, whatever it may be, in the hopes of again, moving the people within those systems and moving, hopefully, prayerfully, even that entire platform towards a more biblical worldview, all for the glory of God. So as we're continuing up these primaries this week. Think about that, and in all aspects, whether you agree or disagree, whether you are in favor of or in opposition to the leaders of our country or the leaders of the world, we should be praying for all of them. So if you're a Republican, pray for your Democratic leaders. If you're a Democrat, pray for your Republican leaders, in the hopes that, again, we will all move towards a more Christ-centered, a more biblical worldview. Thanks, guys. See you next week.